Good morning and welcome everybody to our sixth Roadshow with Niti Aayog WEP platform, Mentoring Roadshow. Thank you so much for joining us today, Friday morning. And we're very pleased to bring the sixth edition of these Mentoring Roadshows for all of you. So all the participants who've joined us new, I just want to mention here that this whole mentorship series is being brought to you by FICCI's Great Empowering the Greater 50 program and Niti Aayog's uh, WEP platform. The whole agenda is really to help out with mentoring and answer as many queries as possible, and also take you through different facets and aspects of entrepreneurship. We have in the past had some very successful mentorship roadshows on marketing, on networking, branding, communications. And today, of course, we have financial risk planning, which we are joined by Mr. Sahil Nandu today, who's our mentor expert today, and he will be presenting and also taking through the questions that you all can put from the chat that I would help take with Sahil. And before I ask Ms. Sumita Sodi from the WEP to speak, I just want to very quickly talk about what FICCI's Greater 50 campaign is all about. So FICCI's Greater 50 is a large women empowerment initiative that we put together to help women entrepreneurs, and not just small and medium businesses, but also rural women entrepreneurs. And the Greater 50 program really is, an aggregation of activities that is being done by a number of organizations through the country who are working on, various aspects of women empowerment. So there is a program for everybody under the Greater 50, right from, helping grassroots level women to actually, also helping women leaders to get onto corporate boards, women entrepreneurs like yourself to help them, solve their queries, as well as gender inclusion at workplace. So it really is a large program, and we, of course, work with multiple partners. And of course, we're very happy with our partnership with WEP, but I also want to mention here one of our other esteemed partners, Edulgive Foundation, with whom, again, we are doing a lot of work under their Udyam 3 campaign. And we are working with the Maharashtra government's Department of Education. We are doing a lot of inspirational talks and series, and Mr. Sahil Nandu really has come to us. We've got his connect from the Edulgive campaign, the Udyam 3 campaign. Wanted to just acknowledge that. And now I think I would really ask Sumita to please speak about the WEP platform here. Over to you, Sumita.
Thank you so much, Uma. Good morning, everyone. So, hi, I'm Sumita. I work at Niti Aayog, and I also work on this Women Entrepreneurship platform in WTA Awards. I would just throw some light on what the purpose of WEP is. So, Women Entrepreneurship Platform is an aggregator platform which aims to address the information asymmetry, which is available, in the ecosystem of women entrepreneurs. So, there is ample amount of information available online and offline, and ample amount of schemes, government and private, and the knowledge and how to do things, when to do things, available already in the ecosystem. But now it's not available at one source. So at WEP, we are trying to bring everything together so that we can provide a one-stop shop for the all women entrepreneurs. So being the aggregator, we bring together the women entrepreneurs who are aspirants, as well as at start age, mid age, and later age as well. And we also bring together the partners who provide such support. So as FICCI Flow is also one of those partners, and so our main purpose is that we truly recognize that the role of women entrepreneurs. Role of women entrepreneurs in building the India's economy, and we all know that each and every woman entrepreneur on average provides an employment to other 4 people, and that is a huge contribution if you see in terms of bringing India towards achieving the 5 trillion economy, and also curbing the the repercussions which India has been facing after COVID. So understanding all these needs and the requirements and the importance of women entrepreneurs, we are trying our best, and we are also I would commend the work of FICCI Flow, which it has been doing in this ecosystem. And I would like to congratulate Uma and Nitin for successfully conducting 5 roadshows for the mentorship already. And this being the 6th one, I request all the users here and all the participants here to leverage and make best use of the mentorship support which FICCI Flow is providing. So, and I give my best wishes to Sahil as well for convening this mentorship in this session again going ahead. And I wish good luck to all the women entrepreneurs, and I look forward for the entrepreneurs to uh, gain the knowledge and best support from WEP and FICCI Flow. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sumita, for telling our entrepreneurs about the WEP platform. And really, it really is a platform where all of you must register and leverage and make use of. And of course, the Greater 50 also, because the whole idea is just to sort of help our entrepreneurs as much as possible. That's the whole idea. Before I hand over the session to Sahil, really, I just also wanted to quickly say that apart from these virtual roadshows that we are conducting for all our entrepreneurs, there is also a ready-made platform available for all of you called the Micro Mentors under the Greater 50 initiative. Nitin, if you could just quickly in the chat also put the link. This is a free of cost online mentorship service available, and all our mentees here can register there and access a global pool of mentors, and it's totally searchable, and very easy, very simple search, and you can really search subject wise or sector wise, and then subsectors also are available. So if you need help with marketing, digital marketing, packaging, whatever your need really is, you could look for the mentors there. Nitin just put that on the chat box, so please do check that out for yourself and really make use of it. Now, of course, I think without wasting more of the time, really wanted to introduce Mr. Sahil Nandu, who's a director at Waterfield Advisors. He's a SEBI-registered investment and family business advisor and works investment portfolio strategy, philanthropy, international investing, etc. He is a mentor under the Udyam Sri campaign of the It'll Give Foundation, and is really passionate about promoting women entrepreneurship in the country. So, Sahil, thank you so much for joining us, and I would really hand over the session to you. And once you're done with your presentation, we can take up the questions that come to us through the chat box. Thank you, Sahil, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful introduction. Hi, guys. I'm Sahil Nandu. I'm a director at Waterfield Advisors. Waterfield Advisors is one of India's leading and largest multifamily office and investment advisory firms. As part of what we stand for, we're associated deeply with the It'll Give Foundation, which has come up with the Udyam Sri campaign to promote women entrepreneurship in the country. And as part of this, I have registered on the FICCI Micro Mentor platform to help women entrepreneurs with whatever little I can in their journeys. So today's topic, as we know, is financial planning and risk management. Nitin, could you please share the presentation?
Can you see my screen now?
Yes. So we've been living through pretty uncertain times in the last 2 years. And I think it is essential, and I think we've all realized at some point that while having a plan does work, a lot of times it does not. Nitin, all okay with the presentation?
Sorry,
Yeah, we can view it, Sahil. We are able to view the presentation.
Great. So, as I was saying, in the last 2 years, we've all realized that while we can plan and have a pretty laid out and chalked out plan for our businesses, for our lives, sometimes these things are thrown out of the window because there are things that black swan events, for example, that we've just not anticipated or even thought about. Uh, However, that does not mean that we don't have a plan, right? So, what exactly does a plan mean, right? It is essentially a step-by-step arrangement that you construct to achieve any goal that you may have set for the future. Now, this could be a personal goal, to learn something, to earn something, or a goal for your business. To, for example, you may want to get to a certain turnover or achieve profitability or reduce costs by some percentage points, grow into a newer market, diversify. All serious goals require a plan, right? And in business and in life, it is very important to have a plan for your financial situations. Uh, a strong plan will always give you the confidence to achieve your goals. And this is backed by data and reasonable assumptions that you have made as an entrepreneur. Uh, Despite thinking through everything, most of us experience, a lot of surprises and unexpected events in our journeys. And this is where things get challenging sometimes, even fun, depends on how you see it. But a thorough plan, will always account for these kind of unexpected risks. And it's very critical to have a thorough plan. For example, you've started a business and in the first year, you anticipated that your expenses may only be X, and suddenly, because of things that you have not foreseen or forecasted or assumed, uh, these expenses are now suddenly 2X, which you may have not planned for. But what is important is that uh, where to stop. You need to have, for example, a savings pool for these kind of contingencies. Right? While unexpected risks can be challenging, and they can throw your calculations, haywire completely. But planning for them may not make you question the survival of your business. It's always very powerful to have a plan that, what if something that I have not anticipated comes up? How am I going to handle these situations? Uh, in short, the idea of a financial plan is to build a step-by-step understanding of how you will achieve any business goal that you've set for your business by optimizing the resources that you have, right? And the main idea over here is to maximize shareholder value. Before we jump into details, I think it's very important for everyone to know that financial planning and risk management is an extremely broad topic. People uh, have postgraduate majors and careers as financial planners and risk managers. So, a single presentation is not really going to do too much justice to the entire concept of it. But my entire endeavor today is to just take budding entrepreneurs and people who are considering entrepreneurship on the path of knowing what risks and what risks you could face and how you could plan for all of these. Right? These are all the most simple metrics that you got to keep in your mind before you actually go ahead and take any significant risk that you may not want to regret later. Can we go to the next slide? Great. So what are the objectives of financial planning, right? There are four main, as you can see on the screen, there are four main objectives. Adequate supply of funds, optimizing the funds that you have, safety and planning for risks, and a sound capital structure. Now, of course, these are not the only objectives. These are just broader guidelines that everybody must follow and keep in mind before taking any serious decisions. So, what does adequate supply of funds mean, right? Uh, every business needs some capital to run, to grow, to thrive to the next level, right? So, but if you're going to be spending more than what you're earning, which sometimes is normal in the beginning, in the beginning of the life cycle for most businesses, you have a certain financial runway. We don't have unlimited capital, as they say. It basically refers to how many months your business can keep operating before it runs out of money. So if you're spending, more than what you're earning, for example, and you have about 12 lakhs left, right? So you can only spend about 1 lakh per month over and above what you're earning before you run out of money. So a strong financial plan will ensure that you have adequate financial visibility and runway for your business. It won't come as a surprise that, hey, tomorrow I don't have money left. What do I do suddenly? You have a timeline, you have a runway that you can see, and you can plan accordingly. Uh, Optimizing fund utilization basically means whatever funds that your business, has, they must be optimized to the highest impact. You shouldn't, typically, as most startups, are, you shouldn't be very easy to spend money. It's very important to be frugal till you have, your financial maturity in the business that comes about. So, basically the idea is to have the highest impact for every rupee that you spend. In easy language, one must, judiciously spend on whatever that will have the genuine reason to grow your business, right? You don't need to just spend to look good, to come across as, nice looking, but spend on things that will probably give you the highest impact over the long term. Safety and planning for risks. Now, this is very important. Now, you must deploy capital towards initiatives that you are confident of making business sense, right? A lot of people do a lot of things, but their financial situations may be very different. A lot of times we are overrun by biases and sentiment. I feel this is good. I think this is good, or I'm very sure this is going to work. But we don't have enough data, thorough data, to back these positive outcomes that we want. And this is where, there's disappointment, there is financial miscalculation that comes in. It is important to ensure that despite having a plan, uh, you will have some unforeseen risks, and you must provide for them. Many times being an entrepreneur can be very, very humbling, as much as it gives us a high that I'm my own boss and I'm not answerable. But it can also be very humbling if, you're not planning your finances very well. Another important thing is your capital structure. Now, while this is a very complex decision to arrive at, but depending on how you choose to build your business and how much runway we have, basically the amount of time you have before you run out of money, is extremely important to have a capital structure that does not pressurize your decision making or your day-to-day working or your motivations for doing whatever you are doing. For example, if you borrow too much money, you have to uh, pay interest on it. You have regular EMIs going by, right? And this pressure should not make you take decisions that are not aligned to what you set out to do in the first place. On the other hand, if you dilute too much equity, right? If you raise equity and you keep raising money and not spending it judiciously, and you dilute too much equity, it may come at the cost of, just losing control of your business, or even worse, motivation. If you suddenly are overnight a 10% shareholder in the business very early, you may not be very motivated to meet your goals, because you'll always keep questioning what's in it for me. So it's very important that all of these objectives are kept in mind while you are building a company. And financial planning to that extent is going to be extremely essential before you raise funds or have the real confidence to build a business. It need not be very complex, like fancy business plans and huge Excel sheets, but you've got to make a start somewhere to ensure that these objectives of financial planning are aligned with what you really want to do. Nitin, can we move to the next slide, please? So what are the functions of financial planning? Uh, there's, of course, there's a lot of things that financial planning can really help you with, but there are some key functions that, regardless of the business you're in or regardless of the stage your business is at, are important. The first one being the estimating capital requirements, right? So an entrepreneur has to constantly make capital estimations with regards to how much the business would require. Uh, because as I said earlier, not all of us have access to unlimited capital. Uh, so, you've got to plan, and this will depend upon, what your product is, what your expected revenue is, what your costs are, if and how profitable you are, and future plans for your business. So estimates have to essentially be made with ensuring that you are always trying to maximize the value of the business or shareholder value. And without this, you may start, but you won't go too far, because at some point or the other, the idea of business is profitability, right? And we'll have to ensure that it is a self-sustaining mechanism at some point, not immediately, but sooner than later. So we've got a plan for this. One other important function of financial planning is determining the capital composition of your business. So once you made these estimates as to how much I need, when I will need, cash flows, etc., you've got to come to something that is called the capital structure determination for your business. This involves short-term and long-term debt equity analysis. For example, what proportion of equity capital your business has, and how much do you need to raise later. If you have an equity of X, do you need to raise debt? Do you need to raise equity? These are all questions that need to be answered mostly by entrepreneurs, of course, with the guidance and help from professionals. But it really depends on the journey you are on individually, right? It's there is no one set formula for anybody. It's important that you realize that uh, what you do, how you look at things, could either be your strength or it could pull you down at some point, not intentionally but unintentionally. So it's important to ensure that your capital composition is made up of debt or equity in a proportion that you are comfortable with, that your business can actually absorb. You can't take too much debt, for example, when you don't have the ability to pay it back, or you don't have a plan to pay it back. So this is how you've got to arrive at determining your capital composition. Sources of funding. Uh, a strong financial plan will justify or not particular sources of funds, right? For example, should you go to a bank and take a loan? Should you go to an angel investor or a venture capitalist? Should you take a working capital loan? Should you explore a category called venture debt, which is debt for startups or for younger businesses, a high risk business, which a bank or a traditional financial institution may not be willing to lend to. These are all different tools that an entrepreneur has today for executing your vision. Uh, India has really evolved in terms of our funding landscape over the last decade, and you've got to do your research for where you want to raise your funds from. Today, entrepreneurs are even very particular about the kind of investors they want to associate with, and vice versa, obviously. But it's important that you do your research over there. Another function of financial planning is planning and investing funds. So, say once you have enough money for your venture to take off, it is very important to objectively evaluate where you can deploy these funds. So, for example, an entrepreneur needs to ensure that any investments that are made, in a business, in product development, in people, in infrastructure, they can generate a higher return than the cost of the funds. So if you borrowed money at, for example, 10% per annum, you've got to generate a return slightly higher than that to justify the fact that what you've done is a right decision. There may be a mismatch in the beginning in nascent businesses, but as a concept over the long term, you've got to be very mindful of these things. One other important factor to consider is surplus management, right? When you have a strong plan and execute your business very well, in all likelihood, you will make a profit at some point. So in such a case, an entrepreneur really needs to decide whether she wants to get the money out of the business by declaring a dividend to shareholders, or do you want to retain your profits to further invest in expansion, innovation, diversification, new products or services, right? So whatever surpluses that you have, it's important to ensure that you have a plan for what you want to do with this. Uh, Cash management is also a very important aspect of your entire financial planning. It's also called treasury management. So you require cash for everything, right? For payment of wages, salaries, your utility bills, electricity, water, paying your creditors, short-term loans, meeting any other liabilities that you have, maintenance of your inventories, purchasing raw materials in advance, etc. So there's a lot of things that are going on. So while money is going out for earning future revenue much earlier than the revenue actually comes in. So it is important in such cases to manage the cash flow in a way that your regular forecasted periodic liabilities are met. For example, if you invest all your money in a project and have no money left to pay your salaries on time, your team is not going to be very happy about it, right? So that managing that cash flow is very important when you're running a business, so that while you may be a profitable company, sometimes cash flow mismatches can really put you in a spot because you don't have the money which is yours available at the moment. So cash flow management to that extent becomes very critical. In fact, a lot of companies are evaluated on how well they manage cash as they grow. One other function is having very strong financial controls. Uh, Financial metrics, these could be standard metrics, accounting metrics that everyone uses, or it could be something that you define for your own business. But financial metrics are like a lighthouse on an entrepreneur's journey. Many times, simply ensuring that you are complying with very, very, very basic financial metrics can ensure that your business will survive. And that is very important. Statistically, not many businesses, most businesses don't make it beyond the 3-year horizon. But if you actually ensure that you do adhere to some basic financial metrics. For example, ensure your expenses are lesser than your revenues. Sounds very simple, but when you start putting it down on an Excel sheet, you'll realize that there could be something that may not work out as per plan. So you've got to budget for some room over there as well. It's important to be frugal, limit debt, so that in case there is, your revenue is postponed, you don't have a certain interest burden that will weigh you down. Uh, the interest coverage ratio is something that you can track to ensure that you are confident of managing and optimizing the credit that you give or take, and have very strict rules. For example, if I've borrowed 100 rupees from somebody, I know I need to give it back, say 1 year down the line, but I've got a plan for it. I've got to ensure that this is in place so that there is no issue with uh, the survival of my business tomorrow. So these are the broad functions of financial planning. This is what objectives, the technical objectives can be achieved by having a strong financial plan in your business plan. And I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who sometimes ignore this, right? Because the business is too small and too simple to begin with. But at some point, your business will grow. At some point, complexities will grow. You will have more competitors. Uh, so it's important to have this in place as early as possible. Nitin, can you go to the next slide, please? So what is risk management now? We've spoken about financial planning and what all financial planning can do for us. But what is risk management? So risk management is the process of identification, analysis, and acceptance or mitigation of uncertain investment decisions. Now, this sounds very complex, but it isn't. So you cannot start a business, for example, without taking any risk. It is inseparable from return. A risk-free business is going to give you extremely low returns, if any, in the first place. There is nothing like a risk-free business. And good risk management is is a very essential part of running a successful business, because you will always have risks on all fronts, whether it is something like a COVID, weather, regulatory changes, people issues. Risks will always be there. Today, technology is becoming the backbone for most businesses, and there are a tremendous amount of risks that are on the tech side as well. So it may be as simple as uh, foregoing your regular income from a corporate job, right? When you are starting a business, it is a risk because you will not have a regular income, and you will be spending to build your business. So if something doesn't work out, you are sitting on a risk. Or for example, investing in a business venture for outcomes without any guarantee. You've started a business, you've gone ahead and produced a good or a service, and it doesn't work out. So that is a risk, the possibility of things not working out. But instead of worrying about risk, it is important to plan these as per our own capacities and ensure that we have the strategies to mitigate the unforeseen and foreseen risks. So everybody's risk tolerance is very different. What I may be willing to take is not what somebody else may be willing to take. Uh, but it's important that we're very honest with ourselves to define this. What is my downside? Is a question that I keep asking myself also while taking investment decisions of any sort. But it's important that everybody is, thinking of these things in the right way. That I need to plan for this, because it's not something that you can avoid. Just having a plan is not going to ensure that you can avoid risk, right? So while some risks can be directly managed, other risks are beyond our control. But planning to mitigate these risks is in our control. Uh, like something like COVID, nobody ever really planned for it. Nobody thought that something like this could happen. The world could shut down for 6 months. But that's what happened. But uh, it's important to have a worst case scenario in place, or worst case, if you don't have that in place, you've got to be nimble enough to identify the situation and pivot your business or your thought process or your product and strategies in a way that you can survive. So that's essentially what risk management is. Next slide, please. So these are very broad risk categories that are there, and under each category there are tremendous number of risks that are adding up on a daily basis. For example, the types of tech risks that are coming up on a daily basis are new risks. They're not things that we had planned for. So it's important that we look into the future and reasonably make some estimates and assumptions for what we could be facing. So if we have to just go on a very macro level of what is what, uh, market risk basically means the risk of changing conditions in the marketplace that your business operates in, right? So one example of market risk is uh, increasing consumer habits to shop online. So retail shop owners, if they think it's just a fad, uh, they're not very happy about it right now, because it has hit them tremendously, because most people today are comfortable shopping online. So this is a market risk. This is a dynamic that was not a surprise. It didn't happen overnight, but uh, it's something that everybody, all business owners, all entrepreneurs need to, move ahead with. And if this is something that we ignore, we've also got to be prepared for the stresses that would come with it. So companies that have been able to, adapt to serving online consumers, they have thrived. They've seen substantial growth, while companies that have not, uh, they've fallen by the wayside, or they're under tremendous financial stress. Uh, this example also relates to another element of market risk, which is the risk of being outmaneuvered by your competitors, right? So in an increasingly competitive world, um, often very narrow profit margins, most financially successful companies are offering a very unique value proposition that makes them stand out from the crowd. But if you're doing the same thing over and over again, people are not going to be willing to pay you the same amount of money, because for the same amount of money, there is somebody who's giving them some extra value add. So it's important that you're aware of what's happening in the market and ensuring that uh, you are on track with your competitive landscape. Uh, the second risk that is very important is credit risk, which is the risk that a business faces by either extending too much credit, whether it is to your customers or vendors, or taking too much credit in terms of the amount of time you can take to repay your suppliers, for example. Now, credit risk, uh, you know, can be defaulted on, right? Sorry, I mean, credit that you give out or you take can be defaulted on. So there is a huge amount of risk that your cash flow stands to suffer. So you must handle your credit obligation by ensuring that your business always has sufficient cash flow to pay your bills in a timely manner. Otherwise, suppliers may not extend any more credit to you, or they may even stop working with you altogether. So credit is, while it is very useful, it's also a double-edged sword, that where if you don't have a plan to pay it back, or you don't manage it well, you could damage reputation and even question the survival of your business. Uh, the other risk is liquidity risk, right? So which is how liquid your assets are in case of a sudden change. Uh, you know, when something like COVID hit, did you have the ability to either sell your assets or monetize your assets in a way, or part of your assets, uh, with relative ease, so that you have enough money in your bank account to continue as a going concern, to survive a storm. Uh, so operational funding liquidity is a reference to daily cash flow, right? Your daily cash flow cannot be impacted because of, uh, you know, uh, your employees may understand for some time that, okay, the situation is tough, but they're not going to work for you for free for life. So there can be temporary adjustments that can be made, but liquidity is something that needs to be planned for. And just recessions, seasonal downturns in revenue, they can present a substantial risk if the company suddenly finds itself without enough cash to pay basic expenses. So this is why cash flow management becomes very critical to businesses. And one other sort of risk that we look at is the operational risk. This refers to operational risk is the risk that can arise from the operations of any ordinary company's business. Like, for example, a legal risk, something that you've not accounted for, or a fraud that happens with a vendor or a supplier, or a people issue in your business, or the entire business model risk. Like, for example, retail. At some point, people are shopping so much online that we really don't need as many shops today. So this is where your operational risks also have to be taken care of. So these are the four large buckets. Of course, under operational risk, you also have, as I mentioned earlier, tech risks, which are never ending today. You have financial risk, we have frauds, financial fraud. So all these types of risks are some things that we need to plan for and have adequate mitigation strategies for. Next slide, please. So how do we manage this risk, right? Now, of course, there's going to be multiple ways for managing all sorts of risk, but there are some buckets that you can really refer to while trying to mitigate risk in a certain way. So the first thing is risk acceptance, right? It comes down to just accepting that yes, there is risk. It is coming to terms with the fact that there is risk and you can't do anything about it, but instead you've got to understand the probability uh, of it happening and accepting the consequences of that may occur. So for example, if there could be a fraud, we all know there could be a fraud that takes place, but you need to just first accept that that could happen, and then you take decisions which increase the probability of making sure that there is no fraud that can happen at your end. So the best strategy when risk is small or unlikely to happen is to accept it. It will happen. You just need to have a plan to mitigate it. The second thing is risk avoidance, right? So if a risk comes from starting a project, launching a new product, moving your business to another city, if it is too large to accept, or it's something that you are not too comfortable with, it may be better to avoid this risk, right? In this case, risk avoidance means not performing the activity that causes the risk. You can, temporarily just park it and maybe come back with a stronger plan before you end up taking this risk. So, managing risk in this way is most likely how people address personal risks, right? If you know, for example, riding a very powerful superbike can cause an accident, don't ride it if you're not confident. So these are the smaller examples, but risk avoidance is something that you should be humble enough to accept. A lot of times, people think that I can take any risk and can get a little overconfident. That's where problems can begin. Uh, Risk mitigation, when risks are evaluated, when you do a thorough analysis, some risks are better not to avoid nor accept, right? So in this instance, risk mitigation is, it refers to the process and methods of controlling risk. What can you do? What are the plans you can have? Who are the people you can connect with? Do you know anyone who will help you if you are in situation B or situation A or situation X? It's important that you identify risk and its probability, right? So you can allocate some resources for managing this risk. A lot of times we know that, okay, there could be an earthquake and my plant can get damaged maybe, but what is the probability of that happening, and what measures do I have in place to deal with a strategy, an issue of that sort? The next thing is risk reduction. uh, so entrepreneurs can typically assign a level at which risk is acceptable, right? It's technically called the residual risk level. uh, Risk reduction is the most common strategy because there is mostly always a way to reduce some risk or the other. Uh, you cannot eliminate it, but you can reduce it. It can help you decrease the impact of some consequences that you may face. And the final one is risk transfer. Transfer involves moving the risk to a complete third party or an entity. So the most simple kind of risk transfer example is insurance. You've transferred your risk to an insurance company. It doesn't ever come free of cost, but it is a smaller amount to pay as a premium that you would pay to transfer your risk from yourself to either another uh, party or another entity. This even holds true in case of real estate. A lot of times, real estate is held in different entities just to transfer the risk that could possibly arise from uh, such assets. And the final is monitoring risk. While this is not a real strategy to mitigate risk in any way, but just ensuring that you are aware of what is happening around you it can sometimes do 90% of the work that's required to manage risk. It's a lot of times things don't happen overnight. Nothing comes overnight. It's always simmering somewhere in the background. But you've got to be attentive enough to just know that, okay, this is a possibility, albeit a small one. Next slide. So, finally, what are the benefits of having a strong financial plan and risk management structure, right? So, uh, one thing is that you get very clear goals and expectations. So, if you are starting a business, what are you going to achieve in the next quarter, next year, next 3 years? You may want to establish this first uh, before you jump on to starting your business, or raising more money or investing more money in your business, to ensure that your business is actually fulfilling a certain need or solving a particular problem or a gap that exists. It's also called product market fit in technical terms. So a strong financial plan will ensure that whatever you are doing is very clear. And the expectations you should have from the activities you undertake are clear, right? Another benefit of having a strong financial plan is cash flow management. So as we discussed earlier, a financial plan should set clear expectations for cash flow, right? The amount of money that comes into your business and the amount of money that goes out of your business. So in the beginning, of course, you could spend a little more than what you make, and that's how most businesses could work in the short run. But what is an acceptable level of expense, and how will you stay on track is a very important to keep at the back of your mind. So as part of this plan, you also need to figure out how you measure cash flow easily. Uh, you need to have your own metrics apart from the accounting metrics that will give you a reasonable amount of heads up when there is something that is going into a warning territory of sorts, that I need to ensure that there is more cash, I need to ensure there's more cash, or there is more avenues for me to get this cash back, right? So by making a plan early, you can anticipate challenges in receiving money or spending money, and in turn do both more effectively. So if you can manage your money in and money out more easily or with more confidence, you almost always won't be in a financial issue that a company can face. Another benefit is smart budgeting. So this is again closely related to cash flow management and reducing costs. So once you have a very clear understanding of the amount of money you have to spend for a certain period, whether it is coming in through sales or existing capital or borrowed money, you need to figure out how you're going to spend this money. There are multiple heads that we end up spending money on, like for example, product development, marketing, customer support, research, allowances, salaries. We need to ensure that amounts dedicated to each of these blocks are accounted for. Uh, you know, every head can be given a budget, right? So budgets given, they give each team their own constraints. So for example, if you tell the marketing team that, hey, we only have 5 lakhs of marketing budget for this year, whatever you do, you've got to be working in this budget and in these limits. That puts a lot of perspective, instead of suddenly having a surprise that, hey, we don't have money to do this. But if everybody is smart enough to know what the budgets are, communicate them very clearly, the outcomes cannot be too far away from reality in that case. And also, it's very important. A smart budgeting plan can help you track projects and outcomes of wherever you made your investments, right? So you know that we've spent X and we're expecting 2X or 3X back. And once you break each budget down, it's relatively straightforward to keep an eye on who's spending what. So if, on an overall level, if you have a budget of 10 lakhs and you know that your marketing had a budget of 5 lakhs, but they spent 7 lakhs, you know that there is something that you need to fix somewhere. So smart budgeting is a very important benefit of having a good, strong financial plan. Cost reductions, very self-explanatory. Having a strong plan will again identify costs more effectively and ensure that you don't have surprises. Crisis management is it's a very important thing that your financial plan can support you with, especially in since the year 2020, right? There have been all sorts of crises that's been around, and with so many risks that all businesses face on a daily basis, a strong plan is essentially all that we have to manage crisis. Uh, Another unexpected benefit is smooth fundraising. So the first thing any prospective investor or bank or lender will ask you for is your business plan. And what they really want to see is how you intend to grow the business, what risks and uncertainties are involved, and how you'll put their money to good use, because they're not doing charity when they give you a certain check. They want to ensure that you have a strong financial plan that will generate more return for the risk that they are taking by investing in you. And the better your history of showcasing that you are a good planner, uh, they will trust your projections more. So whether or not you're looking for funds today, a business plan is an important tool in your war chest. It'll always show prospective investors that you are somebody who works with a plan and who's got a plan B ready in case of any hiccups anywhere. Uh, a good financial plan and risk management plan provides you with a reliable roadmap, right? So a strong plan will, it is a lighthouse for entrepreneurs. So it'll ensure that this is a budget that you cannot bust, or this is something that you must do, a certain revenue that you must do. So it becomes a very reliable, data-driven, and well-assumed roadmap that you can use to go by your journey. And the final, and I think the most important benefit of having a plan in place is the fact that you create a very strong culture of transparency and trust, right? So your employees are essentially giving you a part of their lives. You may say it's for a salary, but they trust you with their career growth. When they give you time, it is something that we can't compensate very easily in terms of money. So a transparent culture will, foster trust, friendship, and motivate everybody at all levels to work towards a certain goal. When you have some numbers clear, there is no room for any debate. There is no challenges that could come up as far as the plan goes. There could be outside challenges, but if everybody is on the same page, it's always much easier to have the transparency and trust that comes by. Next slide, please. So this is largely the what financial planning and risk management means. Of course, there's each topic could have hours of content and learning on it, but some few practical tools that all of us can use as small business owners, as somebody who's building something, is when building your business plan, find a mentor, because a lot of times, while we are very optimistic or sometimes pessimistic, somebody who's been there, done that can give us uh, good guidance. Somebody who we trust can give us something, a perspective that we may not have seen otherwise. So having a mentor always helps. It cannot, very rarely can it do any harm. Uh, Take professional help, but always give your 200%. So while making a business plan, maybe you can involve your accounting or business analyst or a friend who is, working in finance or anything. But the onus is still on you. You can't shift it to anybody else because everybody comes with their own biases and perspectives. And while numbers won't lie, but there is no one decision that will work for everybody. Don't accept conventional wisdom blindly. At the same time, don't ignore it either. There is a lot of wisdom from from the past. We've come to this stage by the process of trial and error, and it's important that we don't ignore everything. At the same time, there are newer ways of doing things. You should also be trying to question why this and why not that, but obviously not in a very aggressive manner, but do it with all the humility to believe, as Elon Musk says, look at the first principles and try and figure if you can do something different. Uh, Put down multiple scenarios and play with the sensitivities of each. So this is very objective and data-driven scenarios. What if your revenue is 50% of what you projected it to be, or what if you don't make any profit, or what if the raw material cost of your product goes up significantly? Uh, Put these numbers down on an Excel sheet and just in your free time play around with all sorts of possibilities that could happen, and that's where you start looking at risk from a very different point of view and uh, having some plans for it. You can't plan for everything, but you can start planning for some outer scenarios. I can't stress on the next point enough. Learn intermediate and advanced Excel. Uh, it'll just give you so much confidence when people say, just do a back of the envelope calculation or put it down on paper. They don't literally mean doing that. Uh, Putting things down on Excel using some smart filters, some smart formulae. Uh, you can really get so much more perspective that you will be surprised. I cannot stress on this enough. Uh, uh, there's always more you can learn from Excel than what you think you know. And there's tons of free resources available online, some courses that you can do to learn Excel. And this is a skill that will absolutely never go to waste. Uh, and finally, research intensely and repeatedly. It is never enough. The world is changing every minute, and there is so much happening out there that we don't even know. And there are people who are thinking decades ahead of us. So research intensely and repeatedly. It's you will always find something different. And more importantly, just enjoy the process. Right? It's not a race. It's easier said than done, but if you don't enjoy it, you will never have the positive outcomes that you're looking for. You'll always be stressed about life or work, and that's not how you will be happy building anything. So with this, thank you. This was what I just wanted to share. Very brief and very bird's eye view of everything, but happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Sahil. I think it was a really, well laid out presentation, and you really took all the entrepreneurs step by step on the risk and financial planning. So, thank you so much. So, there are a few questions that we'd already received, and I'll also ask the participants if they want to ask any question, they can put it on chat here, and I can take up those questions, for Sahil. And I'll just read the questions that have already come to us, Sahil. So there is one, Ms. Pooja Kanthar, who's asked, what are the critical financial metrics that founders should be aware of while managing their businesses? And what are the common financial mistakes made by founders in early and mature stage of their business?
Sorry, your voice was cracking a little. Can you please repeat that if you don't mind?
Sure. Is it clear now? Is my voice clear?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So Ms. Pooja Kanthar is asking, what are the critical financial metrics that founders should be aware of while managing their businesses? And what are the common financial mistakes made by founders in early and mature stage of their business?
So there are tons of financial metrics that we should track. There is no one or two metrics that are ever going to keep you stable. But of it all, what I would focus on is revenue. Because if your engine is not running ahead, you will have issues at some point or the other, and that slowdown is very difficult to push up. At the same time, we've got to ensure that our expenses are in reach. We're not spending more than what we're earning. We are not ignoring innovation from the outside landscape that could come and eat us up, right? So a lot of times, people tend to ignore certain trends. At some point in history, when people saw aeroplanes and people saw cars, they thought that they were just fancy devices and objects. They never thought that a horse cart would go out of business, but it did. So it's important to ensure that we're looking at things uh, at outside metrics as well, other than internal metrics.
Thanks, Sahil. There's one question on the chat from Ms. Preeti Bedi, who's joined us now. She is asking, how do we do valuation?
So valuation is a very complex exercise. It is essentially an exercise to forecast your future revenues, expenses, and in turn uh, profitability, and accordingly come up with a valuation. So most businesses have too many moving parts to them, and all of these need to be captured. Now, there are some valuation standards that exist for different industries. Some are priced on revenue multiples, some are priced on EBITDA multiples, and some are just priced on hope. That also happens today. So valuation is a very complex exercise, and ideally you should be taking help of your accountant and a business analyst to help you with it. And then again, there is a lot of resource available online to start building a very simple financial plan and forecast of your business to come up with the basic valuation.
Thanks, Sahil. The next question is from Ms. Sonal Shukla of Eco Deco, and she is asking what are the factors that one needs to consider while making projections, and how can women educate themselves about financial planning both on individual and enterprise level?
So things that you need to, metrics that you need to really follow to make strong forecast is essentially uh, what is happening in the business and the economy around you. Like for example, interest rates or cost of capital, or the raw materials that you may use if you're building a product, or wage inflation. These are important metrics which are otherwise ignored very easily. Uh, as far as learning about financial planning and risk management on an individual and personal level, uh, my honest suggestion at all times is go to a professional, because it is, while we can have our own views on what is comfortable to us or not, it's very important to take a professional's guidance for coming up with a foolproof, almost foolproof plan. There's nothing that's always foolproof.
Thanks. Ms. Sarita Fernandez from Kasoy is asking, what are the seed capital options in India apart from credit?
So Indian markets, as I mentioned in my presentation, also
Yes.
the last decade have really expanded in every way and every direction, and there is just so much today available for entrepreneurs who have a business, and they mainly have a language to prove that they will achieve what they set out to do. So you have angel funds that are available to invest. You have so many events that actually enable you to pitch your business and your story to prospective investors, angel investors. So while the large private equity and venture capital funds are not the only ones, they may be the most powerful ones, but they're not the only ones. Today, there are so many platforms and non-profit platforms where you can actually go and present your ideas to prospective investors. There's also different kinds of funding and different institutions that are giving uh, structuring very different financial deals for early stage and for startups. Venture debt is one of them, where these institutions are willing to take slightly higher risk for the risk that comes with a newer company. So there's tons of resources out there. There's a lot of platforms and a lot of options available today for budding entrepreneurs.
Great. There's one more question from Suvarna from Bootstrapping, who's asking that I'm working on my startup, but it is mostly my savings that I'm using to run the business. I'm trying to seek loans, but my funding requests keep getting denied. What can I do as a woman entrepreneur that my loan applications do not get rejected? Is there a checklist that I could refer to? Some of them you've answered, but I thought I'll take this question.
Right. So first of all, it's important to ensure that whatever this risk anybody is taking with a business, they know what their maximum downside is. You cannot keep putting an unlimited amount of money in a business, because it's not that just because it's your business it can't fail. It's important that everybody is planning their risk well, planning their downside well. Uh, when it comes to, there is no one checklist to seek loans, but of course all banks, all financial institutions have their own metrics that they look at when they want to lend money. Either it is a certain level of revenue run rate that is there on an annual or a monthly basis, or a certain level of profitability, or a number of employees that you may employ, uh, a number of years in existence for a business. A lot of times institutions don't lend to businesses that, for example, are less than 3 years old. So these are all different parameters that different avenues will look for, but there is no one checklist that is there. But largely as long as you can prove to any lender or investor that this is your plan, this is how you intend to make money, and you are already delivering on it to some extent, it's not impossible. It may be tough, not impossible.
Great. There's a question, in fact, a couple of questions from Mamta Jain, who joined us on the other webinar link. She asked, how much would it cost for an early stage business for risk management instruments? And also, that do social enterprises need a different way of planning and risk management as there is a slow growth?
So there is, depending on the instrument you use, the cost can be different. So as we spoke in one of uh, the slides in the presentation, one key method to transfer risk is insurance. Now, insurance can be either very expensive or depending on what you are trying to insure and of what value. So if you try to insure everything, which is basically you are saying that I don't want to take any risk or I want to transfer every risk that I have, obviously the cost of that is going to be significantly high. But you've got to be smart about risk, and take you've got to take the risk that you are confident of taking, and only the outer risk that you may not survive financially is something that you can transfer and pay a sum for. The easiest thing to do is again put it on an Excel sheet and first know. A lot of times entrepreneurs don't know what risk they could be facing. So I think that could be a good start. Cost of risk management is it could be all over the place.
Great. Another question is that, I work in a corporate job currently, and how do I plan my journey to becoming an entrepreneur? And also, what kind of saving should I have before I decide to become an entrepreneur? As a new entrepreneur, what is it that I should have?
Yeah, so this is very important. And a lot of times people don't think through it fully. When you are in a corporate job, you have a fixed salary that you get. You have your expenses that are largely planned because you don't have any surprise expenses that may come up. But when you take the plunge into entrepreneurship, there could be surprise expenses that you've not accounted for, and there is also no regular stream of income that you have. So it's a double whammy. To that extent, I think there's a two-pronged approach and a very simple one that one can take. One is to ensure and be very clear about what amount of money you are willing to lose in your business. It may sound a little pessimistic, but that's your downside. And once you know this is the amount that I'm willing to lose, you won't be really rattled or surprised. The other thing is to have at least 2 to 3 years of expenses to be taken care of. Probably even higher if you have a family, if you have a child, if you have their schooling and their responsibilities to take care of. A couple of years of saving is very essential to ensure that uh, if things go if things don't go as per plan, your life doesn't come under a crisis mode. And third, uh, default mode is to just be frugal. The lesser you spend, the more money you have. Money saved is money earned.
Which also brings us to the next question, which says that when do I know that my venture is not working out for me financially?
So this is a little tough. It's you've got to be very sure about when you arrive at this decision. Uh, a venture could not work out because you have run out of savings. That is one thing, or your business has run out of savings and further capital, or it could not work out because something is genuinely not working. Your products or services are not taking off, or you can't find customers, you can't create a brand. So these are very different problems. So if you have run out of money, or if your business is running out of money, there are avenues to go and raise more money today. In a very traditional sense. But if your product is not working, and if you're not getting a response, if you've done your research and you can't sort of the numbers don't add for what you're doing, then the time to stop is now. Because the lesser you burn over there, the better it is. Maybe you can just park it aside for a while, do more research, and come up with a more robust plan to go at it again.
One more question, in fact, a couple of questions, which is how does one plan individual finances while taking the plunge into entrepreneurship, and how do I manage risk in my personal finances as a new entrepreneur?
Right. So I think we already covered one part of this question.
Yes.
You need to have a couple of years of savings available, and maybe a little more if you have a family. It always helps if you have a partner or a family support that where you don't have to take care of the basics. Like, for example, if your parents are earning or your wife or your partner is earning in any way, that can really bring in some stability with the basics. But as far as risk management on the personal side is concerned, it is extremely important that you have two things in place. One is life insurance, which is essentially a term life insurance where if anything happens to you tomorrow, your dependents are not going to go through too much financial stress because they will have a sum that comes to them. And the second and the most ignored bit is health insurance. Healthcare costs are severely high, and the inflation in healthcare is much higher than the inflation that we actually see. So what costs 5 lakhs today, a procedure may very well cost 10 lakhs in the next 3 years. And these things, health is something that most of us take for granted. And as the saying goes, the only thing that a sick man wants is good health. A healthy man can want 10,000 things, but a sick man only wants good health. So this is one thing that is very important to have covered, because without good health, you will not be able to build what you are out there to build, and any surprises over there are expensive.
Thank you so much, Sahil. I think that brings us to the end of our questions that we've got. And thank you so much for giving us your time and really, breaking it down, the whole risk planning, and really making us all understand what it really, what is really required, and how every entrepreneur must really look at the risk valuation and risk planning, which is so important for your enterprise to really succeed. So thank you once again, Sahil, for joining. And I also want to tell all the participants who've joined us today here and through our webinar link that any further questions you may have, please feel free to write at FICCI. We will try and get you answers from Sahil and all our other mentors. So please do connect with any queries you may have on risk planning or otherwise. We are here to really answer your queries. So thank you, Sahil, once again. And a big thanks to also Niti Aayog. I think they've left now. So thank you. Thank you all participants for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It was great.
Have a great weekend. Thank you.
All.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Chetan, we can close.